All right, welcome back, everybody, to a brand new video here on the second channel. And today I'm coming at you all with another deck profile video. Yep, back-to-back deck profiles. Just did Terra Box yesterday. Today we're going to be talking about Charizard EX. And I'm going to be showing off my Charizard EX deck that I've been really enjoying in this new format. I think Charizard has a ton of potential. I actually think it's broken again in this format. Outside of an iffy matchup versus Dragapult, I think Zard is great into almost every deck in the meta, but Dragapult. And even then, Dragapult can be beaten. It's not impossible. And obviously, Dragapult might not even be as popular as we all think it is, which is a good thing for Charizard. And Charizard has a lot of potential to do well in the new format because, like I said, it seems pretty good against a lot of the big decks in the format. I'm going to be showing off my brand new list that I've been testing and really enjoying in today's video. Now, if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We are on the road to 22,000 subs. You can go on to enjoy the video and have been enjoying the deck profile videos. Once again, leave a like on the video. I'd greatly appreciate it. Show y'all support on these deck profiles. I enjoy making them. And so I'm going to keep making them as long as you keep showing the support here on the content. So let's talk about Charizard real quick in the format. Now, Zard right now in our current prismatic format isn't very good, right? Budew, Dragapult, being essentially like the best deck in the format, the most popular deck in the room, it's not a good thing for Charizard. Charizard really struggles against Dragapult, especially when they Budew you and you can't go Candy Zard, Candy Pidgeot. But with rotation, things are getting a little bit different now. A lot of these turbo decks like Raging Bolt, even our Chaladon, are starting to become more popular, and they're honestly going to scare off Dragapult. Dragapult does get a little bit weaker with rotation, losing cards like Lance, losing Lumineon V. There's some pretty interesting losses for Pult. Now, Pult is still popular, and I still expect Dragapult to be fairly popular at the start of the format because people are just used to the deck and they just have the cards for it. They might not have all the new cards yet that they want to try out, so some people might just stick to playing Dragapult for a bit. And there's other big threats in the format like Walls, Feraligatr, Cornerstone Ogerpon in general just can be very annoying for Charizard, but I've built a Charizard list to counter some of the harder counters Charizard has. There's a few ways I've seen it being played. Now, the one I've stuck with for today's video is actually going to be playing it with a Pidgeot EX engine. It's kind of the more classic approach to Charizard, but there's still Charizard Dragapult, and there's Noctowl Charizard, which you can do some really creative things with that build. But like I said, I've kept it classic for today's deck. I've been really enjoying just straight up Charizard Pidgeot because I think Pidgeot is really good. And I don't know, playing Charizard without Pidgeot just doesn't feel right, in my opinion. So let's take a look at the Pokemon count in the deck here. Now, starting things off, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Charizard EX. Instead of playing the 2 copies that a lot of the lists have been playing recently, I've just opted to go back up to 3 copies because keep in mind, at rotation, we do lose cards like Rotom V, Lumineon V. You don't have as much pop-off potential anymore with Charizard. You can't just like always have guaranteed turn 2 Zard Pidgeot because you lose instant charge. Going first with Charizard actually feels pretty bad right now. So to make up for that, we have 3 copies of Charizard just to try to get it out as early as possible and as easy as possible. We got the 1 of Charmeleon and the 3 Charmander. I am considering going up to 4 Charmander just because of Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon, and even like Budew. It's not going away anytime soon. Budew will still be in the format, so having 4 Charmander, just naturally being able to play it without getting item locked, or just having multiple Charmanders in play when your opponent goes for like a Wellspring Mask, Ogerpon play is nice, but just currently can't fit 4 Charmander, but I definitely wouldn't mind 4 Charmander. You could go 4 Charmander, 2 Charizard instead, but I think 3-3, 3-1-3 is fine. Just naturally having more Zard in the deck just makes the deck more consistent. And with the way I've actually built my Charizard deck, it's actually good to have the 3 Charizard line, because there's a very important attacker in the deck, which honestly you kind of need 3 Charizard in order to even make that card kind of splashable within this deck. So for now, I'm going to keep up with my 3-1-3 line of the Charizard. But of course, like I said, I am a big enjoyer of Pidgeot. I think Pidgeot is just too strong to not play with Charizard, so we are going to be playing 2 copies of Pidgeot EX with Quick Search to get any card out of your deck. Again, just one of the most valuable cards in the deck to help find your pieces. So we got 2 Pidgeot, but we are going to be playing the Pidgeotto in the deck. Now, we are playing Team Evo in the deck because you kind of need it. It's very good against Budew, obviously. And Pidgeotto is going to be in the deck to get Pidgeot out a bit quicker. Like I said, without Rotom V anymore, it's a bit harder to actually ramp that turn 2 double stage 2 play, so it's nice to just have the Pidgeotto if you ever have to like play it slow for a turn and use like a TM Evo or something. So that's why we are going to be playing the Pidgeotto, just to have access to Team Evo. But just being able to get Pidgeotto quickly is nice. I think this is the optimal Pidgeotto. It's got a free retreat, and it does 1 for 20, which in some cases can be mildly important. But, I mean, ever so mildly. Now, of course, we are still going to be playing the Dusknoir, I mean, you gotta play the Dusknoir, man. Like, I don't know, playing Charizard with a Dusknoir doesn't feel right in my opinion, and it's still very important to have Dusknoir in this deck, just to be able to have more explosive plays against our Chaladon, against Goldango. Dusknoir also kills Mimikyu, kind of important. We do have ways to attack Mimikyu with Charmander, Charmeleon, but just having the Dusknoir just makes it easier to deal with Mimikyu. If your opponent puts Mimikyu in play, you just blow it up with Dusknoir. Pretty easy stuff. And again, it helps a lot into a lot of matchups. Just also being able to put on tempo with Dusknoir is really good. If your opponent has a slow start and you can put on pressure with Charizard, you can take like those multi-prize turns. You can like Dusknoir selling on the bench, knock out their active. A lot of the time, if you take the first two prizes, like it's really tough for the opponent to actually keep up, or at the very least, win the game in the prize race, which is why Dusknoir is still very important to play, in my opinion. Just being able to have those turns where you can use Dusknoir and Burning Darkness in the same turn to take two prizes, three prizes even, just it's too good not to play. Now, this is the big tech card in the deck, and that is a Gouging Fire EX. Now, I have seen different Zard variants in Japan playing different fire Pokemon. Like, there's a Shiyu they've been playing. There's a Paldean Tauros they've been playing. Personally, I'm a big fan of Gouging Fire in this deck. Now, Gouging Fire is a very powerful attacker with Blaze Blitz that does 260 damage, and this Pokemon can't use Blaze Blitz again until it moves out of the active spot. The main purpose of Gouging Fire is that it one-shots Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. If your opponent puts a Cornerstone in play, you can deal with it with Dusknoir, technically. You can Dusknoir twice, but you don't always get to pull that off. If you prize Dusknoir, it's basically wraps at that point. So Gouging Fire just makes it super easy to just blow up a Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. If your opponent tries to Cornerstone you, a lot of the time you can actually win game one in like a best of three, where like they try to like lone Cornerstone you or something. You just Gouging Fire them out of nowhere and you just knock it out in one hit. Also, this can attack my low tick EX, which is also really good. It doesn't one-shot it, but you can go Dusclops Gouging Fire to one-shot the Milotic, which is not that hard to do. So being able to just knock out Milotic in one hit potentially is really good too. Yeah, it one-shots those threats. It also can attack Goldango, which is nice. Goldango is actually a bit of a scary matchup because you don't have Radzar anymore. They can easily take the first two prizes. If you just go Charizard, hit for 180, they just go E-Search Pro, blow up your Charizard, and it gets a little tricky. With Gouging Fire, you can attack the Goldango with the Gouging Fire first if you really have to. So that option is available. And against Archaladon, which is another matchup that isn't hard to beat, but it's actually tricky because of Relicanth. You can't just hit into the Archaladon as easily because of the Relicanth, right? So with Gouging Fire, you could just go Counter Catcher Boss, bring in the Archaladon, and then knock it out Blaze Blitz. If they have two Archaladon in play, you can knock out the Archaladon on the bench with Blaze Blitz. Just being able to attack Archaladon is good. Also, it's got 230 HP. Archaladon cannot one-shot Gouging Fire in return unless they've teched for the Gouging Fire, like if they're playing the Poison build or if they're playing the like Vengeful Punch or Vitality Man or something in the deck. Like, if they can't one-shot the Gouging Fire, like, you're just probably chilling. And I've built the deck to be able to move in and out of the active spot with the fire a couple times if you really have to. You can easily build this thing up with Charizard EX. You can mention it early to get energy on, and then you can go Zard 2 energy attached to Charizard, so at least your Charizard isn't stranded with no energy on it. But I'm a big fan of Gouging Fire. I think it's a really cool inclusion. It lets you take the first two prizes in a lot of matchups. It can attack Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon and knock it out in one hit. Even with a Bravery Charm on, that thing is still getting KO'd, and you can also use it against Milotic. You can use Pidgeot against Milotic too, but it only does 120 damage, and it two-shot, and your Pidgeot gets two-shot by Milotic, whereas Fire can literally one-shot it with a Dusclops. So it's just, in my opinion, the best tech card. The Shiyu idea isn't bad either, because what you can do with Shiyu is it's a one-prizer that can one-shot Teal Mask Ogerpon. It's not bad either, but I like the Gouging Fire because it just makes it much easier to beat walls, which in my opinion will be popular. And then finally, the last two cards, Pokemon anyways, we got Pheasantipity for some extra draw. There's a Cleffa. Again, the deck loses Rotom V and Lumineon V. This is one of the downsides about Charizard nowadays, is it did lose its support engine. Losing Rotom and Fish is actually a big deal, especially Rotom, because it was such an important card in getting this deck established. So a lot of the time now, you have to go second with the deck, so you can use turn 1 Cleffa, which isn't even that bad. Cleffa's always been a really good card in Charizard. I've always been a fan of Cleffa in Charizard. I've played it, every time I've played a Charizard deck, I've always ran a Cleffa in the deck, because it's just too good not to play. You could also play a Budew if you want, so you can try to slow your opponent down so that you can buy time to build up your board, even building up the 3-stage 2-turn, which is really good. But I think Cleffa is just a little bit better. Also can't fit a Budew in the deck, but a Budew isn't a bad idea either if you want to slow your opponent down that way. But in my opinion, if I'm going to be using a baby Pokemon, I'd much rather just put a Cleffa in the active and draw a bunch of cards. And most of the time, a Cleffa will get you at least pretty close to a double stage 2 combo. It won't always get you there because, again, there's no like Forest Seal Stone. Your Arven's not as strong, but Cleffa's still a really strong card. And a lot of the time it baits your opponent into Ionoing you, which, can be relevant too, just to refresh your hand. So I think Cleffa is like good. It's not as good as Rotom. It will never be Rotom because going first is weak for this deck, but going second, you can still Cleffa into a nice big hand. On to the supporters. We got 4 copies of Arven. Yes, I know we don't have Forest Seal anymore. Arven's value has diminished, but it's still a really good supporter because it finds you rare candy for free, which is still just as relevant as ever. There's also 3 Iono. Like I said, the lack of Rotom and Lumineon, it makes me want to play 3 copies of Iono, just so that we just naturally have more draw in the deck. Just having draw is good. We do have the Pidgeot, and once you get Pidgeot out, usually you're able to chain together all these combos. But if your Pidgeot dies, or, let's say your hand sucks, you can just refresh your hand with an Iono, and just having 3 Iono is just better. Also, Iono is one of your main win cons in this deck in a lot of matchups, like against Goldengo, for example. You just want to be spamming them with Iono so they can struggle to find the double retrieval, as Goldengo is a lot slower now as they no longer have access to Pokestop and Ninja and stuff. And then we got 2 Boss's Order, the Charizard Classic. I mean, yeah, we're going to play boss. A lot of the time, Zard just likes to spam Gust, so 2 boss is good. Now, we do have a lot of one-of supporters. Let's talk about them. The first one is Jock. Now, Jock is really cool. It lets you get 2 evolution Pokemon from your deck in your hand. A really good card, actually, to be able to set up multiple stage 2s in a single turn. If you have a rare candy in your hand and a Jock, you can go Jock for Pidgeot Charizard, and then Rare Candy Pidgeot, Rare Candy Charizard with Quick Search. So, really cool card in the deck. Also gets you Ghost, which is really good, too, in the mid to late game. I really like Jock a lot. I low-key kind of want to play 2 of these. I don't think 2 is good, but I kind of do. Like, it's a very good card. There's a lot of niche situations where this card comes up, and it actually ends up being very useful because it lets you have those explosive plays out of nowhere. Like I said, playing 2 isn't bad. Again, there's no Lumineon. We can't cherry pick it as easily, but it is nice to have. We got a Turo. Very important to play Turo. I think, Turo is still great in Charizard. It lets you clean up your board. It lets you, Turo even a Charizard, which can be good in like a 2-shot race. Really good card to have. And then we got a Kieran. Now, the reason I'm playing Kieran in the deck is because we have Gouging Fire EX. Like, I wouldn't be playing this card without Gouging Fire, but since we play the Gouging Fire, we're going to be playing the Kieran. If you don't know what it does, it has 2 effects. You get to either switch your active with one of your bench Pokemon, or you get to do 30 more damage to one of your opponent's active EXs or V Pokemon. The logic behind Kieran is that if you go Gouging Fire, you just can go Kieran into Gouging Fire again and then attack again if they don't knock it out. Or, if you really have to, you can use Kieran's second effect here that allows you to do 30 more damage, which can actually be really good against a lot of matchups where you need that 30-bit more damage with Burning Darkness. This is going to be good in the Mirror match. It can be good against Dragapult. A lot of situations, Kieran can actually be surprising. Your opponent may not expect it, which is why it's good. And then, finally, we have Briar. I mean, we're playing Charizard. We may as well play a Briar. Really good against stuff like Feraligatr and other one-prize decks. So Briar is still a great card to play. And those are the supporter cards. There's a lot of other supporters I've seen people play within Charizard. Something like Research could be good, just because it's just, again, a nice draw supporter to have, since Arven is not as strong as it used to be. I've also seen Drayton in the deck, which is a really cool idea. Drayton is not a bad option either. It can get you potentially Rare Candy Stage 2 pieces, but Drayton's less reliable than Jock, in my opinion. I'd rather play Jock over Drayton, but Drayton can be very cute, because when you can Drayton into like a Rare Candy Stage 2 combo, it's pretty broken, I'm not going to lie. All right, on to the items now. I'm going to play 4 Poffin. Obviously, gets you your Charmanders. 3 Ultra Ball because it finds you your Evolutions. And then 2 copies of Nest Ball in the deck. I would play 4 Ultra Ball, but Ultra Ball's value has diminished in this deck because there's no longer Lumineon. You can't just Ultra Ball for Lumineon. So Ultra Ball is less good. Plus, we have the Jock, so it's like 3 Ultra Ball, in my opinion, has felt very fine. Because usually, if you can set up your Pidgeot, 3 Ultra Ball is more than enough to get you where you need to go. And then 2 Nest Ball in the deck, too. We're going to obviously play 4 Candy. Yes, we do play TM Evo, but 4 Candy, you want to have it when you need it turn 2, right? We got 2 Super Rod and a Night Stretcher. Pretty good to have the double Rod in the deck. We do play a decent bit of energy compared to most Ardless, but the Super Rods are nice because you can recover your Dusknoir. It's really important, actually, against the wall decks where you need to blow up their Mimikyus. And then the Night Stretcher's really good. We got 2 copies of Counter Catcher. Like I said, this is another very important piece in the deck. Counter Catcher, always just been a good card with Charizard in general, but it also lets you knock out Archaladon really easily with Gouging Fire. So 2 Counter Catcher, in my opinion, is just optimal. 1 copy of Switch. I like having the Kieran and the Switch in the deck and the Turo. The extra mobility feels really nice. Just alone to have it with Gouging Fire is really good. Like I said, you want to be able to switch with Blaze Blitz if you have to, but it's also really good to have the switch against Monkey Dory and Wellspring Ogerpon, which in my opinion are two pretty popular cards in this format. So having the ability to get out of like random confusion plays or paralysis plays or saw block plays is nice to have. I'm a big fan of Switch in this deck. I like the Switch in the Kieran. The extra mobility just feels really nice. And also, if you have to like Charizard 3 energy to a Gouging Fire, your Zard can get stranded with no energy on it, which is a little annoying, and then having the Switch just punishes your opponent for doing that. Then one Artisan for the Stadium. I kind of want to try to fit a Jamming Tower in the deck, just in case we run into like Luxurious Cape or Hero's Cape. Also nice to have against other decks using TM Evo. I can't fit a Jamming Tower, though. I definitely don't mind the idea of playing one. I think there is a logical reason to play a Jamming Tower, but I like Artisan. Just gets you basics and also helps against Budu and stuff, which is nice. And then we got one TM Evo. Pretty important tool card to play because you need the TM Evo to evolve your Lads out, get your Charmeleon out, get your Dusclops, get your Pidgeotto. So you're going to play one copy of TM Evo in the deck. And then finally, the last item is an Unfair Stamp. I'm really a big fan of Unfair Stamp right now. Honestly, there's a lot of Ace Specs Charizard could play right now. Precious Trolley's really good to set your board up. Unfair Stamp is good. Maximum Belt is another really good Ace Spec Charizard can play. Prime Catcher could be good. Secret Box. Grand Tree could be good in the deck still to evolve your Pokemon a lot more easily. Personally, I'm still a big fan of Unfair Stamp. This can be a very fun card to play. Basically, if you can go turn on Cleffa, they knock out your Cleffa, you can go Unfair Stamp, Rare Candy Charizard, plus like Counter Catcher, KO Fez. That's pretty good. This is a lot better to have against like Raging Bolt or something. Also, just naturally a draw card, right? The more draw in the deck, the better. Like I said, Charizard, Lost, Rotom, and Lumineon. The deck is a lot slower and a little bit more clunky at getting out these explosive combo pieces. Sometimes you just want to go Unfair Stamp to refresh your hand and then Pheasantipity to draw more cards, and that's why I'm a big fan of Unfair Stamp in the deck. It's never a bad card to have. A lot of the time it can win you the game if your opponent bricks off of Unfair Stamp and they can't answer the Charizard. A lot of the time that's how you win the game. So I'm a big fan of Unfair Stamp. I definitely want to play Max Belt though. I think Max Belt is another really good Ace Spec, but because Charizard is a lot slower now, I think Unfair Stamp makes sense. And finally, the energy count. Just going to be playing 6 copy of Fire. Low-key kind of want to either play 7 Fire or like a Mist Energy in the deck. Just more energy is nice to have with TM Evo, but 6 Fire is necessary because, you know, Gouging Fire does eat up so much energy. So I really like the idea of 6 Fire. It lets you be more mobile with your Charizards. You can sometimes retreat without it being a big deal. You can attack with Pidgeot more often. Instead of playing 5, if you had 5 Fire, you would not be doing Team Evo as much. You'd prize Fire, and sometimes you get punished for going Gouging Fire. When you just have 6 Fire, it's like you can prize a Fire and chill. Or better yet, you prize no Fire energy in a match. You're just like even more Giga chilling. So I'm a big fan of the 6 Fire energy in the deck. I honestly wouldn't mind even a 7th energy in the deck, whether it's a Mist energy or another Fire energy. I honestly don't hate the idea of just playing more energy naturally just to help, but I think 6 is like a perfect amount of energy to play within this Charizard deck. And yeah, there you go. That is my Charizard deck that I've been playing around in the new format. And I've been really liking this deck a lot. I think Charizard is genuinely one of the strongest decks in this new format. Yes, Dragapult is going to be popular, which is going to be the one thing that I think ultimately holds Zard back from being an S-tier deck, or at the very least, like one of the BDIFs. Like, if I think I would rank Zard in like A to B category right now, but I think it's a very underrated deck, and I don't think a lot of decks really can beat Charizard. Charizard is a little bit worse because there's no Lumineon, there's no Rotom. Also, losing Radzard is another big deal for the deck because it's a really good attacker to have against these 2 prize beat stick decks like Raging Bolt, against Terrabox, against Goldango is another big one. So you do get a little worse because you do lose that mobility of those Pokemon to make the deck a lot more stronger, but the ability to just spam Burning Darkness is just really good. Not a lot of decks can keep up with Charizard, and while the deck might have closer matchups now versus stuff like Raging Bolt and Terrabox, I think the deck is still very powerful and still worth playing in this new format regardless, and I'm really liking Charizard a lot. So definitely try out Charizard. If you're somebody who enjoys the deck, I think Charizard is a pretty good deck in this new format. So hope you enjoyed my deck profile video on Charizard. Again, if you've been enjoying the deck profile videos, make sure to leave a like in the video so it shows your support that I should make more deck profile videos. Who knows, maybe we'll have more coming out in the new format. But definitely excited to crack into some deck profiles. We'll have maybe a couple for Atlanta Regionals if I have time to record some before I leave for Atlanta. But hope you enjoyed. Like I said, subscribe if you're new to the channel. There probably will be another video tomorrow looking at 12 brand new Journey Together decks, which I'm excited for. But hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.